Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new show here on One Soccer called High Press. It is based on the written version High Press by my colleague Alex Gonge-Ruzic. The two co-hosts, myself and Alex, will sit down and we'll break down everything that happened over the weekend in the Canadian Premier League in three different sections. Section 1 is going to be Match Week in 60 seconds, where you guessed it, we will take 60 seconds and go through each club and how they did. We will then move on to one-on-one with a certain CPL player or coach. This week is going to be William Akio, because it had to be. He scored a brace against his former club. One was a beautiful goal and they somehow didn't win the match. Then we will go on to section 3, which is the look ahead, where we will take a look at the Tony Bet match of the week. We will break it down and answer one hot button question. So hopefully you guys are excited for our new show, and if you are, let's get into it now. Alex, you and I have a new show called High Press, covering everything in the Canadian Premier League. If you didn't know out there, Alex also has a written version of High Press, and he's got a controversial section where he ranks and does power rankings of the Canadian Premier League clubs. So why don't you tell us what happened this week and who moved up and maybe who dropped?
Yeah, well, a chaotic weekend. Feels like a week ago I was looking at, Pacific and Cavalry kind of pulling away. Of course, both of them naturally go out and lose this week and kind of shake up the power rankings. So certainly some movement at the top. Atletico Ottawa, they've just been so solid as of late. So they take up top spot, deservedly so. Huge win away to Pacific. Halifax as well makes a big jump. Mostly in the middle. A lot of the movers and shakers kind of stay the same. And then at the bottom, a bit of movement. Valour has spent the last few weeks kind of at the bottom, but with their huge win over Cavalry, they kind of jumped up a few spots. And meanwhile, one of the big fallers, York United, it's been a rough couple of weeks for them. They've been getting points, but maybe haven't been getting wins. You add in the U21 minute struggle, they fall down.
It's time to move on to our Match Week in 60 seconds section, and we're going to start at the top of the power rankings with Atletico Ottawa. It was a vintage 2022 road win from Ottawa, a defensive shift. Espejo was suspended, and Tier Walker stepped up big for his first professional debut. Ollie Bassett, of course, showing why that he is an MVP level player. It seemed unlikely at the beginning of the season that Ottawa could actually defend their 2022 regular season title, but Alex, can they?
Certainly looks like it. They're playing the old Ottawa way. I think earlier in the season, one big letdown for them was that defensively they were allowing a lot of cheap goals. Nathan Ingham's injury certainly didn't help. He's a huge Marshall back there. And it just feels like we're watching Ottawa the last few weeks. Ever since Ingham's returned, Zapater slotted in that number 6, which was a position they needed. And they're defending, and this team can score. It can score a lot better than they were last year. So I think they've got, if anything, all the ingredients they were missing. They've got the performances to show, and the results are backing that up.
Number 2 in the power rankings is Halifax Wanderers. Joao Morelli is back. He's showing his 2021 MVP form with a brace. He had a classy finish and a penalty. He's actually 9 for 9 in Canadian Premier League penalties and 10 for 10 in total with Halifax. Alex, has Morelli come back at the perfect time?
I think he absolutely has. He looks like a new signing for them, just the way he slotted in immediately, and he's back up to full speed. You can see it. He's been able to start games now. He's looking like himself. He's running. He's getting on the ball. He's getting in the pocket, and just it is that first goal for me. I think you can see it. The confidence for the ball, it drifts in, just meets it first time, side netting. Not many forwards around the CPL could do that, and with the skill he has, and it's given Halifax another element to their attack. They already had a dangerous attack, but it's also an attack that likes to score by committee. We've seen that. They don't really have a leading scorer, but I think Morelli, as we've seen in the past, likes to be that guy, and the fact that he's kind of come back and already stepped into that role, natural fit.
Number 3 in the power rankings is Pacific FC. They dropped from number 1, but they are still on the podium. However, they can't win at home. They also can't score either. 11 goals in 11 games at home this season, 18 and 8 on the road. Alex, is the narrow pitch actually a disadvantage?
It's starting to become something that is worth watching. I think especially you watch a few weeks earlier, Pacific went to Valour, the wide pitch. You hear how Valour capitalizes it. Pacific looked, comfortable on that wide pitch. They have the talent to really drag teams around with how they play in possession and use that space. And it's starting to become something where Pacific, part of the home advantage they've had over the years is this narrow pitch. They know how to play. This is a team that likes to play on the front foot, that likes to stretch teams. And I think opponents are realizing that you can kind of sit in, take away space, and it's really hard to score. And Ottawa did that to perfection. I mean, that's what Ottawa can do. And Ottawa's frustrated Pacific away a few times over the last year. So something to watch for Pacific. They've already dropped more points at home than last year. They've had more losses. So the fact that they've been doing way better on the road shows that maybe that home pitch isn't suiting their style of play as much.
Number 4 in the power rankings is Cavalry FC. The Cavs blew a 2-goal lead away to Valour. They dropped 12 points from winning positions in their first 8 matches of the season, and then they dropped 0 across the next 10, making these 3 drop points huge against Valour. Alex, could this cost Cavalry a title?
I think it's something to monitor, because certainly most years this would hurt Cavalry a lot more than it has, and I think perhaps they're a bit fortunate that the race has been so tight and that, just 4 points separate first and fifth. But at the same time, you see how tight it is. Those points hurt because Cavalry's right in the mix. They were first for a week there, then they've kind of been jostling with Pacific. They had a chance to go first this weekend with Pacific losing. Plus, a lot of these points of, in this case, Valour is a bit out of the race and trying to claw back in. But you look at some of these points they've dropped. A couple of them have been to Forge, a couple to Pacific. All these teams around them, those points will hurt you at the end of the season. So they absolutely need to find a way to get back to that form they showed across that 10-game stretch. Because that's where they had their best play this season. That's where they climbed up the table, and they're going to need that over their last couple of games.
Number 5 in the power rankings is Forge FC. Forge has already conceded as many goals in this regular season as they did in the previous campaign with 25. Their offense has picked up, however, with Campbell, Becker, and Borges in terrific form, but they simply can't defend. What is going on there?
Yeah, it's a big mystery, and especially that stat. I mean, it shows, how dominant Forge was defensively last year, that they only allowed 25 goals across 28 games, but the fact that they've already matched that total now just shows right now there's something wrong. And you can see there's been too many games like this York one where it's multi-goal outbursts, sloppy goals, sloppy defending, just lack of communication. Another thing that's hurt them is that they have a lot of rotations to how they want to play possession-wise, which is great, but also I think teams are trying to exploit that and find those spaces in Forge's back line. So I think for Forge, feels like perhaps maybe a return to a bit more of a simpler defensive format might be what's needed for a few weeks just to get that stability back, because it's hurting them and it's costing them points in key games.
6th place in the power rankings is Valour FC. They moved up 2 spots after finally coming off the bottom. For the first time this season, Valour has scored 3 goals in a match, and the first time that they've won a game when not scoring first. They've also snapped a 6-game winless run and a 3-game home losing streak. Can Valour grab some late momentum here and push for one of those final playoff spots?
Well, the stats there certainly speak for themselves, and it shows why their 3-2 victory over Cavalry was so big beyond the fact that they just snapped that winless run. You see, they haven't won games like that where they're scoring or going down, and I think that was some great fight back from Phil DeSantos' group. So, look, it's something where it's going to be a long battle to get in the playoffs, but that's the kind of resiliency you want to see, right? They kind of had every reason to maybe quit in a game like that. You go down 2-0, you've had a rough month. So the fact that they fought back and got those points shows that there is still some fight left in this group. They showed that last year when they had a less than ideal start and made a push right to the end to almost make the playoffs. So there's obviously some spirit in this group. If they can keep that up, I wouldn't rule them out based on how tight the standings are.
7th place in the power rankings, we have York United, who just came off their 2nd straight chaotic 3-3 away draw with an Ontario rival. After grabbing leads in both of those matches, those drop points could loom large in the playoff race. Based off of their current form, are they the likeliest team to drop out of the race for the playoffs?
Based on what we've seen, yeah, they're the ones where they're going to need to turn it around fast. You look at every team around them, Pacific, Ottawa, Halifax, Cavalry, Forge. They've been getting wins. They've been trending in the right direction as of late. When they're losing, it's usually to each other. For York, they've just, been struggling with consistency and getting those wins as of late, especially defensively. They finally scoring. Brian Wright's on the board again after a slow start. 2 goals in 2 weeks, yet, 6 goals conceded. That's not good enough if you're going to be in the playoff race. So for York, they absolutely need to turn it around, and there's going to be a lot against them. They've already played an extra game. They need to average over 140 U21 minutes per game. They got a lot of injuries, a lot of suspensions. It's going to be tough. So absolutely, this is one where they're going to have the biggest work to do if they're going to make the playoffs.
Finally, in the basement, in 8th place in the power rankings, we have Vancouver FC. They can't score, they can't defend. The new parts are still not gelling together. What needs to happen to be able to get this team to turn their fortunes around?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's something where just got to get some form, got to get some confidence, got to get some momentum. It just feels like that's what it's a complicated answer, but I'd say it. And then from there, within on a more macro level, just continue to build partnerships, continue to get these players getting used to playing with each other, test out some new combinations in the attack. Because look, they're still mathematically alive in the playoff race. They're going to say they're going to want to push. They're going to try to push. But it's also something where, as a new expansion team, you got to look forward to next year. And that starts with, getting those regular habits, getting some momentum, getting used to those partnerships, figure out what kind of players you want to stick around next year, and go from there. And I think that's something where if you can get some big confidence boosting wins along the way, that'll help. And hey, if you can also play spoiler, that's a nice feeling that, say if you can beat a team, they drop out the playoff race, that's also a nice role to play. So that's, if I'm Vancouver, focus on those things as they push, maybe with an eye on next year.
Next up is the one-on-one player interview that Alex and I did with William Akio, so let's jump into the conversation now. All right, William, you scored a brace against your former club Valour over the weekend. I'm just curious to know about your celebration. Was it planned? We see people who've scored against their former clubs before kind of put their hands up. Like, did you have it planned already, or did it just kind of happen in the moment?
No, to be honest, I did have it planned. I said, if I do get an opportunity to score a goal against my former club, like, I'm not going to really celebrate or do anything too crazy because, Valour, a special club to me, gave me my first professional contract, treated me so nicely. So that's just all out of respect.
And I mean, speaking of celebration, probably when you scored, if people weren't familiar of your ties to Valour, they might have seen the backflip the week before. Plus you did the double backflip if you count what Gote threw at you. What was kind of just, how was that moment, sharing the backflip, and also after you ran right in the crowd? Obviously, you're from Calgary. Looked like you were joining some family. So what was kind of the story behind that whole celebration?
Yeah, no, it was amazing. So, after I scored the goal, Gote was like whispering in my ear. He's just like, "Well, do the backflip. I'm gonna do it with you." And I was just like, "All right, let's go." So as soon as I just winded up and started doing the backflip, I looked to my left and Gote was doing it with me as well. And it was an amazing time, especially my debut back home playing in the Cavalry. And then my mom and my auntie was there. They haven't seen me play in years. My auntie's never seen me play, so it was just it was a surreal moment to go up there and share with her.
Now, kind of touching that a little bit, it's obviously it's very special for coming back to the Canadian Premier League, but does it make it even more special to go to Cavalry? And what kind of went into that decision to head that way? Did they come calling and, it's your hometown club, they made it very easy, or what kind of went behind that?
I mean, they were the first team that was interested, once they knew that, my time over there was going to stop for a while. And for me, it was kind of just like, what's the best place that I can go where I'm going to grow really fast and enjoy my football again, and then hopefully get back out to Europe or wherever else it is. And it was a no-brainer. I'm back home with my family. I can take care of my mom, my brothers, and everyone. So much support around me. And yeah, Calgary was a no-brainer coming back here.
And what do you kind of make of that integration, especially working with Tommy Wheeldon Jr.? He obviously had the chance to work with your brother. And obviously you've rewarded the faith 3 goals in 4 matches. So what has it just been like working with him and then getting the form and the faith rewarded like that?
No, it's honestly been amazing transition. A lot of people don't know, but when I first played Foothills at the time, 2018 of the PDL, Tommy was my coach. So I've known him. I've had him for several years, and even just that game on the 4th when we won at home. That was 5 years from the day that we won the championships with Calgary Foothills. So it was, it's been good. Tommy's always been good to me. And, he's a really good coach, and he's very, very hard on me. He wants me to, really show my strengths, and, he's rooting for me all the way to see how far I can go with my career. So it's been really good with him.
Looking back to your time in Europe, you've had some ups and downs with you scoring your first goal, playing with your brother, but then you had the injury, the loan. What was the biggest thing you took away from the whole experience?
For me, it's just every situation I was going through, I kind of just ate it and digested it and just thought about the positives that can come out of it. So when I was injured, when I did my knee, I had to have the surgery again. It was like, I try not to be too down on myself. I just try to recover, get back as soon as possible, and just learn along the way. So I think for me, it's just mental toughness. I came back with a lot more mental toughness, a lot more composure, just being calm and just understanding that the game isn't, all sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be lots of hard times. Sometimes even more harder times than there is good times. So it's just what you do in those bad times. Control what you can control and let everything else, just play its part.
I guess just kind of off the top of that, how special is it on the flip side that you, at the beginning of that, you got the opportunity to go play with your brother? I mean, there's the fun story how, Ross County didn't even know you guys were brothers, and they signed the pair of you separately. So how special is that, just to kind of have that moment come together after you guys put in, your graft, your hard work in the CPL to earn such moves?
No, honestly, it was so surreal, man. Like, it was massive for not just us, but our family as well. This is something that me and Victor talked about when we were little boys and stuff. And it was just a dream, and a dream that came true. And it was just so much fun living with him, going to training every day. Playing on the same field, sharing the same field every day. It's an amazing feeling, So I'm happy I got to do it for at least a year with him.
Now, I started out making YouTube videos before I kind of got this gig, and I know you do too, William. I don't know if you do it as much anymore, but what is it like balancing having a professional career, obviously playing soccer as a full-time career, as well as making videos? And are you still planning on making more, or what's the situation with your YouTube channel?
So yeah, it's tough. It's not, you can't really post whatever you want to post. You can't do whatever you want to do, because at the end of the day, you're a professional, right? So you got to put out content that's allowed, that people can watch and you won't get in trouble with doing. So that's one tricky part. But for me personally, I did take a break. I haven't made videos in a few months now, and everyone's asking me when I'm going to get started again. So I think I'm going to get started pretty soon here and just start, putting up videos for you guys. But yeah, it's tough to balance it, because you want to do something that maybe you're not supposed to be doing, or the league might not be okay with it. So it's just finding that right balance, and knowing what to do and what not to do.
I guess as well, how important is it to have hobbies like that, and for players to show personality? Because that's certainly something we see a lot in Canada, right? Especially, you hear about all the debate in the hockey country, or the hockey players showing enough personality. Obviously, soccer is a very different sport like that. We see it in Europe. So how important is it to have hobbies like that, where you can show, like, look, I'm human. I'm just like the rest of you. This is just my job full time, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, no, see, it's very important. I think it's super important to have another hobby, because as a professional athlete, not even just soccer player, once you're done work, once you're done training, it's like you don't want to just sit there and bore yourself out. You need extracurricular activities. You need something to keep you going, whether that's an extra side hustle job or a YouTube channel or something. So I think it's very important to have, something else to do other than just play soccer, because it's tough mentally. You don't want to be thinking about football 24/7. You need to have time off to do other things. So I need to find that balance as well. So I need to get back into my YouTube channel, I think.
All right, William, last question for you. I like asking it to you every time I talk with you. Playing for South Sudan, how has it been? I believe you're up to 5 caps right now, and what a unique opportunity has it been for you?
No, it's been amazing. Every time I feel like we get better and better as a team. We get new players from around the world, and we just came off playing Egypt and stuff. So tough game, but if you were to ask me 3 years ago, we probably would have lost that game 5-10-0. So a lot better results just recently with Egypt. And no, everyone is believing. The country's behind our backs and stuff. And I think in the next few years we're gonna do something special with our country. So it's very exciting.
We are moving on now to our next section, and that is the look ahead, where we are going to take a look at the Tony Bet match of the week between Vancouver FC and Pacific FC in the BC Derby. We are going to begin with the biggest storyline surrounding this game, and that is, can Vancouver get points off Pacific? They've done so against every other team in the Canadian Premier League except for Ottawa and Pacific. So Alex, can they do it?
I think it will be an interesting test. They're at home. That's something where you're always going to favor yourself at home. I think it'll be good for Vancouver to get some wins at home. It'll be good for their fan base, good for morale. And it's like I said earlier in that last section, the power rankings, this is also a time to play spoiler. You're playing a rival that you haven't gotten points off them yet. Pacific's kind of, as we've seen, their form's been up and down as of late. They're very much in a title race. How sweet would it be at the end of the year if you're Vancouver FC? Pacific loses on the title by, say, 2 points, and your 3 points you claimed off them in a derby at home is a big reason why. So yeah, I think it's something where Vancouver should absolutely be up for this game, and there's so many motivating factors why, and we'll see if they can add Pacific to that list that just eludes Ottawa and them so far.
Now let's talk a little tactics, shall we? Adonijah Reid and his flexibility is a big part of this Pacific side. When they play their 4-2-3-1, we've seen him pushed out wide, a little bit behind the striker. We've seen him as a striker. Is he going to be able to push Ongaro and Sellouf to the bench? Because we know that Josh Hurt is out. So where do you expect to see Reed line up in this match?
Yeah, it's going to be a great question. And Adonijah Reed, he's had certainly an interesting debut season in the CPL, but I've liked what I've seen. And I think he's kind of one of those players that he's become such a key part of James Merriman's attack because he brings something different. So in this game, based on what we've seen with no Herd, I'd expect probably a front three of Sellouf on the wing, Ongaro kind of in this different, leading the line, but also drifting out wide, and then Reed on one of the other wings, but with him and Ongaro kind of interchanging. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of ends up happening when everyone's healthy as they continue to push for the playoffs, because Reed has probably done his best work, arguably, as a false nine. I think when he's playing there, he kind of brings everyone into the attack. They kind of get that focal point to play off of. He's just so good at combining. He's had some great assists, some great goals. But it's tough because Ongaro is looking good off the bench and scoring goals, and he offers you a bit more of a direct threat, someone who's going to run the channels and bring that energy. So it's something where, do you start Reed and bench Ongaro? Do you want both of them to keep playing off each other? It's a huge question to ask, but I think if Reed's best role is at the false nine, and I think Pacific should continue to play him there.
Now, Alex, you brought up Sellouf, and I'm going to give you a stat, and it's a debate out there that suggests that Sellouf might be better utilized as a super sub, and my stat to back that up is every time he's got a goal contribution while he's started this year, Pacific have 1 win, 2 draws, 1 loss, but when he's got a goal contribution coming off the bench, Pacific has 3 wins, 0 draws, 0 losses. You know how talented Sellouf is, how tricky he is, but maybe the defenders in the league are starting to understand his movement and his game a little bit more, but there's not much you can do when you release Sellouf off the bench full of energy against some tired legs. Could that be his best role?
Well, it's something to watch, because is he probably best suited as a starter? Absolutely. Yet, one thing about this Pacific team is that they have so much depth around him, and I think this is maybe a debate that's only Pacific specific, not to make too much of a tongue twister there. Because, I think there's a benefit for Pacific that you can start a front three of, say, Reed, Ongaro, Herd in a game, and then you're bringing Sellouf off because, it's something where Sellouf, a player of his talent, of his skills, teams are going to pay extra attention. They're going to have a player stuck to him, sometimes 2, 3, as we've seen, and that can kind of lead to congestion. That can lead to teams completely trying to take him out of the game. Whereas if you come off the bench, it's hard. You've already played 60, 50 minutes. You're tired, and all of a sudden Sellouf's in. You already forgot what the game plan was for him, and next he's blowing by you and he's getting goals and assists. So I think it's something where, look, if I was a manager of a team, I'd want to start Sellouf. But also, if you're Pacific's manager and you're James Merriman, it's different because you can start a Reed, and Ongaro, a Herd. So I think it's something where Sellouf, this is a huge weekend for him. He's going to start. Josh Hurt is suspended due to yellow card accumulation. Go get some goals, go get a win to prove that, okay, I can keep being a starter, because if not, with Merriman, with the depth he has, it might end up being a super sub role for Sellouf as the playoff comes around.
Now, Alex, to end off the episode, we are going to answer one burning question, and that is, what do we call this derby? Now, I just mentioned the BC derby, but I know that you have a better thought and option in mind, right?
I think it's time to call it. It's the Salish Sea Derby. I think that's the name I will want to push forward, and there's many reasons for it. A lot of great names, a lot of fun suggestions. I mean, you got to give a shout out to the Lang Lang Derby. That's a classic. You got the Rob Friendly. You got the Step Brothers. Like, there's some great names out there, no doubt. We can certainly keep those around on a unofficial basis, but I think the Salish Sea Derby just fits. First and foremost, it's the mass of water that separates the two. You must cross the Salish Sea to get to one another, be it by a boat, by a plane. I love the tie-in as well of the Coast Salish people. As we know with Pacific, they've done a great job of just being involved in the indigenous, local indigenous community. They have that great third kid of theirs. Ditto with Vancouver FC. That's something they've been pushing as well. So there's that tie-in. You add in as well that the Salish Sea, it's filled to a lot of eagles. There's even a ferry, funnily enough, fun fact, a ferry called the Salish, Coast Salish Eagle. Meanwhile, there's also certainly the Tridents, as we know, Pacific. I mean, that doesn't get more Tridents in Atlantis and that whole theme than the sea. So I think there's a lot of tie-ins there, and it just rolls off the tongue nicely. So I don't know. I think it's time that we call this derby the Salish Sea Derby. Josh, what do you think?
I really like it. Rob Friendly had me laughing quite a bit. I'm not going to lie. That's a good one. But I know friend of the channel, JJ Adams, went out there and put a poll up on Twitter, and I believe the Ferryside Derby actually won that. And that was a no-no for Alex, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's one where, look, I love the name Ferryside, but that one is Pacific versus Whitecaps. That one, it was such a great story. I mean, Pamuduka kind of named it that. Pacific won. You win a derby, you kind of get naming rights over it. He said, this is Ferryside. He put it up on his story, and it stuck on. So, look, I mean, it's one where Pacific's claimed the bragging rights for this one, too, but we asked them, and they kind of have no name. So, based on what we've seen, I think Salish C is one where it makes sense for both clubs, and we'll see if it catches on now.
That's a wrap on our very first episode of High Press. I really hope you all enjoyed it. And if you want an opportunity to win the latest edition of Derby Magazine, find us on our socials, send us a message of what you would name the derby between Vancouver FC and Pacific FC. We will choose a winner, reach out to that winner, and send them the latest copy. But for now, guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week.